Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Social Theory. I am your host, Thomas E. Hanna, the founder of BlogPhoto.tv, and I know this is going to surprise you because it's not like I say this every week, but I am super excited about today's show, and I think there's good reason for us to be excited about today's show. We get to spend time with a man that I think is a creative, absolutely brilliant creative genius in the way that he uses visuals in all sorts of mediums, from graphics to sets to video, and he has really taken a theatrical element to how to use visuals to amplify your storytelling. And we're going to meet him in just a moment. Before we hop over there, I do want to remind you that this is an interactive show, so that means that if you are watching this, you can post your comments or your questions, and we will be bringing those live into the discussion so that we can address your questions and be able to connect with you right here. The way to do that, if you're watching on Google+, is to simply leave a comment right here in the event page. If you're watching from somewhere else, simply tweet your comments or questions to #STShow. We're going to be bringing those all in live via comment tracker, and we're going to be addressing those questions directly in the second half of our show. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the man of the hour, the bearded giant himself, the host of the Manly Pinterest Tips, Jeff Sieh. How are you doing, Jeff?
Well, wow, what an introduction. Thanks so much, Thomas. I'm really excited to be here. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I'm excited about you being here too. I've really enjoyed your show. Not just having some of the great guests that you have on, but the way that you have been able to connect across different platforms, and you identify yourself as a visual storyteller, and I think that really comes across in many of the things that you do. Tell us a little bit about Manly Pinterest Tips and how that came about. What is your journey to come to the point where you are today?
Well, I've had a company in Longview, Texas called His Design for over 12 years, and before that I was a multimedia guy. If you remember Flash websites, I used to work on the Flash face websites all those years ago. So I've been in the industry for a long time. I finally decided to start really doing what I've been telling my clients to do, which was to get on social media and make a presence there. So I decided to do that for myself. So I got on Google+, fell in love with the interactivity that I had with people, how I could just get so much engagement. And then one day I wrote a tip called Manly Pinterest Tip #1. I had listened to a podcast by Cynthia Sanchez and others and started doing Pinterest, and I noticed how much traffic I was getting from that platform. Long-term traffic, and so I wrote this little, it wasn't even a blog post, it was actually a Google Plus post about Manly Pinterest Tip, and I was talking about how I created a secret board for my daughter and how great it was because we could share things back and forth, anything. Well, it took off. People really liked that, and so I wrote some more Manly Pinterest Tips, and then a friend of mine, Les Dossie, said, why don't you do a show? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do a show, because that was when Hangouts were just kind of starting, and there were some things going on, and they said, let's do it. And so I got 4 other guys. I got Les Dossie, Stefan Hovnanian, Wade Harmon, and Mike Alton to come on the show, and we talked about Manly Pinterest Tips, and we did like 6 or 7 episodes, and it succeeded. We got some great guests on there. We got to, and all the cool thing was all those guys had a bigger influence than I did. They all had more followers.
I was gonna say, talk about a killer lineup for your initial crew.
It was great, and so it was. So that really helped too, and they were all those guys were great, helped out a lot, and so if you're starting a show and you can manage that, that's the way to do it, because if you have that many people pushing out your show, it does it helps it out. So anyway, and that's it. It just took off, and then we did a show about another one where we did the Manly Show for a while, which we talked about just various subjects, and then I relaunched. Was it late last year, the Manly Pinterest Tip Show with just me interviewing Pinterest experts, and it's still going on. I think we're in like the 16th or 18th, somewhere around there episode. So,
and talk about, I mean, fantastic timing as well. I know in your most recent episode, one of the things you were talking about was the fact that now, like for a long time, Pinterest was sort of the woman's network, right? This was where the stay-at-home moms went to find recipes and craft stuff. And that was sort of the perception of Pinterest for a while. And it's finally kind of breaking out of that that sort of, you know, cultural perception. And we're seeing a substantial growth of men who are coming into the platform. And you happen to be uniquely positioned as the man of Pinterest at the time, which is going to be fantastic. Fantastic for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, male Pinterest users are the fastest growing demographic on Pinterest. They actually have more subscribers to Pinterest than GQ and Sports Illustrated combined. So it is growing really fast. And if you look at Pinterest's marketing materials, you'll see that they've really started to hit the male demographic. They're talking about beard boards. They're showing videos of guys working on a motorcycle, and so they know that they've got to capture that demographic for Pinterest to really grow. And it's really funny because, you know, guys are visual creatures. That's the way we're wired, and it's just kind of funny that Pinterest has always kind of got that bad rap. That's where you go to see nail art and wedding dresses.
Yeah, and you want to talk about wedding dresses, and that'd be the fastest way to like flee the platform. Say, come hang out here, we can look at wedding dresses together. But now motorcycles and beards.
Yeah. So they're doing a good job now, and it's not as bad as it once was. When you get to see a lot more stuff that you're interested in. It's turning into more of, you know, I don't think of Pinterest as a social network as much as a search discovery engine. Talk to a lot of food bloggers now. When they go look for a new recipe, they don't go to Google. They go to Pinterest to search it.
Which is really significant. But now let's talk about this, because you mentioned just a moment ago the beard boards and the things that guys are connecting in with over on Pinterest. Now you have in the era where Pinterest was seen as the female network, you took it upon yourself. I know this was an evolution, as we kind of discussed initially, but you really focused in on the platform specifically and sought to inject testosterone, as you put it, one pin at a time.
Right. Well, it was funny because I was really nervous when I first started because, you know, I did mainly Pinterest tips. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek because it was supposed to be a female network and all that. And so I was nervous at first that I would hack off women. I thought, you know, and I only got like one comment of somebody said, "Stay out. This is our network." Some lady emailed me that, but there was only you know, really one.
Funny. I'm sorry. I find that entertaining.
It was funny, but there's only one, and so I was kind of nervous that, you know, okay, I don't want to make people mad, but it is tongue-in-cheek, you know, mainly Pinterest tips, and so. But it took off, and then, you know, my kids at that time challenged me to grow a yeared, which is a year-long beard. In fact, at the end of this month, this thing will be a year. So yeah, and so it tied into my brand and what I was thinking about doing, because I was looking at, and you look at all the big, you know, social media experts. If you think really hard about it, Jay Bear, he's got the glasses. You've got Moz, he's got the little curly, you know, the little handlebar mustache. Seth Godin, he's got he's got the eyeglasses. You know, all of them kind of have a little thing. Dustin Stout wears the red V-neck all the time. You know, there's something that sets their brand apart visually. And so I thought, you know, that'd be an interesting experiment. A beard ties in my brand. I've never had one before. Let's try it. And so that's kind of where the beard was born, as you say.
Well, and that's become a part of all of this. But even as we sit here and we're looking, just in our conversation, you have actually created an environment in telling this story about, and just so people know, when I was quoting that testosterone, injecting testosterone one pin at a time, that to cultivate this sort of sense of manliness, you know, this sort of mountain man feel that we are bringing into a network and combating some of the the cultural stereotypes that view it as a female network, and part of that is this set that's sitting behind you and around you. In fact, I saw a comment that came up here. Peter, it was glad to see you here, Peter. He actually is commenting on it. He loves the man cave sign, he says. And so I know that some of these things are part of how you create a brand story. So tell us a little bit about the set and what sort of the thought that went into it, and how does that interact with the story that you're trying to tell with your brand?
Sure. Well, I came from a theater background anyway. Well, and my kids bought me that man cave sign because I actually have an actual separate office from my house where I can, then they all call it the man cave. And so they gave me that, and I thought, you know what? I watched a lot of YouTube channels, which I still think if somebody can really bridge the gap between HOAs and YouTube shows, they're going to make a lot of money. And so, but I was looking at them, and like Good Mythical Morning, they have a set. They do their show on a set. And so I thought, well, I wonder if I could do that for the Manly Pinterest Tip show. And I went to Cracker Barrel, and I was looking at their, if you've ever been to Cracker Barrel, you see their sign, and they have they actually have one of the biggest antiques museum kind of things in the world, but they have all this stuff kind of laid out this way. And I thought, I wonder if I could do that for my show, because at the time, Hangouts they were all putting those logos behind them. They were just printing out the logos and putting them behind them. And I think it's important for people to be a little different. If they have an idea, to try it to see if it works. And I thought, I'll take a couple $100, build me a set, and see what happens. And in fact, I can actually fold this up and take it out if I need to. I never have yet, but if I ever don't want to do manly stuff anymore, I can actually take it out and have a regular background. So that's kind of the thought behind the set, and it did help tell the story of kind of the brand. And the cool thing is I've had a couple people, in fact, that Manliness Perfected sign was actually sent in by a fan who watched the show, and so putting it on there for her made her day, and it was kind of user-generated content, and so it's kind of a fun little thing to do as well.
Well, that's great. I didn't realize that part of this set has actually become an engagement point as well for people. That's I didn't even conceive that. I envisioned sets as ways that kind of help create an environment upon which your story is told. Right. But the way that those can become engagement points, that's a really interesting concept.
Right. And also for the brand, too, I mean, this is maybe a little subtle thing, but I'm always wearing these camp shirts. That's part of my brand, too, is, originally I was going to have like how they have on the or a mechanics like logo or something, but I just never did that. But this is, so when I go to conferences and stuff, people will see me walking around with a beard and my camp shirt on, just like they would see me on the set. And I took that from, Dustin Stout made that point a long time ago. Is like, that's why he wears that red V-neck, is when he's at a conference, people know who he is and what he stands for, and it's part of his brand. So I thought that was a really good idea as well. Because we talk about just within social media in terms of going from platforms, making sure that you're using the same sort of image so that people can connect that concept as we move from platform to platform. And what you're doing is sort of taking that to the next level and saying we're not just going to have the same sort of image, we're going to create a visual consistency with the way I am just across the board, so that even when we're connecting in real life, I become identifiable to people, which means you're very present. Talk about personal branding, right? Because your very presence becomes indicative of the brand that you represent. Right, exactly. Like Colonel Sanders.
So you're Colonel C.
That's right, Colonel C, yeah. So, but, and so I think, you try to, and one of my favorite personal branders is Rebecca Radice. I love how she does her stuff. Visually across everything. She's even got that little caricature of herself that she uses on a lot of her posts, and so you instantly know, and it's that orange color, and so you instantly know that's Rebecca Radice. And so I've struggled, and just recently got my brand image for my blog posts and the things I share out to feel like it ties into my website and the way I feel. Doing a set and wearing a shirt's one thing, but I struggled with getting my the feel of my images to match kind of my brand, and so when I launched the Manly Pinterest Tips website, that's when I started doing the kind of the retro images. And if you see my newest one, it's got a picture of a mining car, because I was interviewing Wade Harmon, who used to be a miner, and I superimposed kind of a retro, because I just like that style, onto that mining car. And so I finally got something I think it feels good for me. And so I think that's important too when people are thinking about their brand or branding themselves. Do something that's comfortable. I mean, I was comfortable with growing a beard or wearing this shirt because it's kind of just who I am. So don't try to be something you're not for your personal brand or branding your image.
Well, so let's talk about that for a moment then. But by the way, for those that are watching, the article he's referring to is Relationship Marketing on Pinterest with Wade Harmon. It went up on his blog today or yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
Yesterday. Okay, it's a neat interview. You should check it out, and you can find it over at his site. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But so we're talking about now transitioning and making a connection not only between the set and in some ways the visual appearance of you as an individual, but the way that you're now integrating that with the images. So what is sort of your approach to creating images in ways that that some of us can connect with? How do you think about images and the way that interacts with your brand?
Well, let me go something maybe not so much as images, it can tie into images, but you got to do something that feels comfortable for you.
Mm-hmm.
I start all my shows with "I'm Jeff Sieh and you're not," and that's the thing I did that I totally stole from Chevy Chase back in the '70s when he used to do
Saturday Night Live, yeah.
Saturday Night Live Weekend Update, because that was one of my favorite shows growing up. So there's a personal connection with me. When I did the Manly show, we would end each show with where the panel is wise, the guests are good looking, and hopefully your host was above average. Well, that's taken from Lake Wobegon, and I just kind of changed it up because of Garrison Keillor. Because of my theater teacher would make us do those Lake Wobegon scripts all the time. And so that was a personal tie-in to me. And so I think any sort of branding you do that you can make personable or mean something to you is going to be more effective than trying to look like the competitor or try to be the next Coke or try to, I like the Coke's logo, make my logo look like that. I think stuff like that where you can take your past, your history, and tie it in to your brand is huge, because I think people can feel that and that they know that it's part of you. And hopefully they're seeing that also when I'm doing my images on my blog or my logo, or listening to my podcast, which the intro is very cheesy, over-the-top movie trailer thing, because I've always wanted to do one, and that was something fun, and people really enjoy it. And so they know that ties into my whole persona and my brand. And the thing is, my brand isn't really any different than me. I'll wear this shirt all the time when I do a show. I won't probably do that out in real life, but it's who I am. And so I think that's important too in branding.
And I think that's such a critical point that you make, because a lot of times we look at a set, we look at the way that, there are visual aspects to how you are presenting yourself, the beard, the shirt, these type of things. You got the man cave stuff, you kind of create this sort of mountain man persona. And so it's easy to look at that and say, well, if I want to learn from that, that means that I need to create a character that I act out. But that's not what really is happening here. You are connecting with certain elements that you're bringing to the fore because, because that resonates with the brand. But in the midst of all of this, you are still bringing out who Jeff Sieh is and allowing that identity to continue to shine out.
Right, because a character could break down at any time, and clients and customers and people you're trying to share the brand with, that can break down, and you don't want to become something that you're not. And so people know that, when they talk to me, I have a goofy sense of humor, or that when they see me, because I have a beard doesn't mean I'm not professional. That was one thing I really scared me, is like, and I even mentioned it on one of your posts that I was thinking about getting new headshots done because I thought I needed some professional photos for like LinkedIn, and more than one person on that post said, no, don't, this is who you are, this is what we identify with. And so I was like, okay. So I'm constantly needing to, double check and make sure the brand is is what it's was supposed to be, and that I'm not going outside of what I should be, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I think that's critical. In fact, I was in a conversation with Dustin Stout a month or so ago. A friend of mine had commented on one of Dustin's articles, and this particular friend shared a link, and he was like, "I really like what you have. I wrote something similar," and shared that link, and his profile image, my friend's profile image, looked very similar to sort of the cookie cutter kind of ways that you have the social media guru of like 10 years ago that says this is how you need to have a profile image, and he kind of had that thing. And
Right.
Dustin almost blocked him because he thought he was a spammer until he went and looked at the stuff and was like, oh, there's some good stuff here.
Right.
But that image, because it wasn't resonating with who that person was, actually became a barrier to connection rather than often we talk about faces. The reason that we emphasize that is because faces connect with people better than brands do. But in this case, because of the way it was done, it actually created a barrier to connection. So that sort of authenticity, even in the image, that moves beyond how do we do this real professional polished thing.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a good point to really clue in on.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you can be professional. I mean, I try to. I mean, I have, it's not like I don't have standards because I don't shave, but I still, my videos, I'm very particular about how those things look, and so there's a difference between looking sloppy and being, a brand. I mean, Duck Dynasty guys, I wouldn't consider them sloppy. They have a brand that they use everywhere, and it's all over. And so so I just that was just kind of my point, is even though you may not shave, you still have standards. So
we'll take that. Well, now you mentioned your videos, and your videos are something as well that has always stood out to me, and in the way that you very creatively tell stories. And in fact, one in particular that I remember that caught me, and this was actually what first hooked me on your show, and it was your intro video, and I can't even remember who the guests were, but you had like 4 women on, and you were the only guy. And so you created an Iron Man trailer. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So you had this amazing trailer where you were talking about who's going to be on your show, and it had all of like the Iron Man things that you see in the heads-up display there, right. And you've got the target over your eye, and you're looking around, and you're like, and the stuff is all moving, and you're saying, I'm going to be totally outnumbered on the manly Pinterest website. We are being invaded by these 4 women, and I am loading up my armor to go in fully armed, and this is gonna, and then you use that to introduce the show, and it was awesome for a couple reasons. First of all, because the production quality of it just blew my mind. I was like, that's stinking cool. Secondly, you were able to introduce the concept of having all these women in a way that built up the content of the show that was coming. But also, by incorporating the whole Iron Man motif, you emphasized this whole. I mean, you took like an archetype of manhood, this icon of manhood, and integrated that into the promotion of this. So your brand came across in just this incredibly creative way. When you approach thinking about how you bring some of these concepts into your videos, into the show, is there like a brainstorming way that you go about trying to think about how you integrate the brand, or how do you approach using video to reinforce the brand story?
Usually what I do, and because I do the same kind of thing on the Manly Monday little short videos that I need to do some more of, but what gets me, one of my things is I think people are scared to use humor in their marketing. I mean, but when you do it, it works very well. I think people learn and are more open when they're laughing. And so I always try to think, like for the before I even thought about the Iron Man thing, and that was with Peg and Rebecca were on, Rebecca Radice, and I thought, okay, what would be funny? Okay, if I could be I know I can do an Iron Man thing. Okay, I can interject that into my trailer. Okay, that's how I'm gonna do it this way. And then you have to make it work, because I had like 4, because you had to look at different spots on the screen, and I had to turn my lights out because I was using a stinking little web camera. And so I always try to think of the punchline. Like one of my Mainly Monday ones, I just thought, it'd be funny. It'd be a zombie that had subtitles, and then I wrote it around that. So I usually, my thing is, I think of something funny or almost like a tagline, and then I say, okay, that the content, and I have buckets of content that I'm constantly in Evernote. I just think of things, and I either put it in my phone or I put it in on my desktop while I'm working. They're just ideas, and it's like, okay, a zombie talking with subtitles would be funny. Oh, and then I have another Evernote file where it has just topics that have to do with Pinterest, like how does mobile work the best on Pinterest? When's the is best time to pin even a factor anymore? And all these, and so then I try to marry those two up. Like, okay, I have this thing, okay, that's going to work with this, and I can make it fit. So that's kind of how I do with video. Is I see it in my head, I see it as a movie trailer or something, and then I try to fit that process together.
So I heard two things. So I heard two things in this. I heard, first of all, that you try to reverse engineer it. If you kind of know what the topic is going to be about, you kind of figure out, okay, if we take the theme or the metaphor or the punchline, how do we reverse engineer it and figure out, okay, what concepts would go with this, and create ideas that way. And the second thing that I heard, similar to the way that we often talk about curating ideas for generating blog content, is that you have column A where you do that, where you curate your ideas for blog content and you record there, here, or show content where you record there, here are the topics that we might want to talk about. And then column B where you have a list of ideas for humorous video content, and then you try to match those together.
Right. And a lot of times I'll have the ideas, and then okay, that won't fit. Okay, I need to come up with something else. I mean, I have tons of funny things that don't work all the time. So you have a lot of extra content that you either have to shelve for later, or you just can't do because of either production or time or whatever. So I think, but that's the one thing I would suggest to people if they're struggling with content ideas. Just keep writing ideas down. You don't have to use them. Just keep putting them in some place where you can go back periodically and check. Just because it's been invaluable to me. Because when you're struggling for content, when you go look at that list, even if you don't use anything on that list, most of the time it spurs new ideas.
Yeah.
So, storytelling ideas. So, and I think of everything as a story. Everything is me. Even if I'm teaching on how probably I thought my most boring one, but it got shared the most, was how to pin on mobile. And all it was is I had put myself inside of a phone and I was talking inside of a phone. But people loved it because it was practical and gave them good tips. And that came from one of those kind of brainstorming sessions.
And that was inside a phone booth. And this was a video that you did that talked about how to pin on mobile?
It was one of my Mainly Mondays, and I just talked about how important mobile was for Pinterest, because 75% of people are using Pinterest mobily. And so then I had a picture of a cell phone, and I changed my voice, and I was like, you saw the cell phone, and you saw me kind of going, okay, this is what it looks like inside of a cell phone, and da 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 da. I think it's actually on. I think it's on Peg Fitz. It was a guest post for Peg Fitzpatrick, but yeah. So I mean, stuff like that. I think it's just thinking outside the box, and then thinking about what you can do with your budget. I mean, I would love to do a big musical number for my Mainly. I think it would just be hilarious.
Like a Monty Python type thing?
Yeah, I would love to do it. But I mean, I don't have time to do that right now. Or, I mean, I think people would share the snot out of it, and it would just go crazy, but I don't know it would impact my bottom line for my business. So that's when I get to put on hold that, someday when I'm rich and famous, that I might be able to do a musical little video.
Nobody expects the Inquisition. Yeah.
That's right. Run away, run away.
All right. Well, we're gonna come back to this conversation in just a moment. But Jeff Sieh, according to the Big Brain Social Theory Clock, we are now at the halfway point in our show. And do you know what that means, Jeff Sieh?
What's that?
That means it is time for this or that. All right, folks, this is the point in the show where we get to know our social media leaders just a little bit better by asking them a series of 4 this or that questions. Each question is going to be drawn from my Would You Rather deck of cards and will correspond to one of 4 categories. The first category is fear or discomfort. The second is appearance or embarrassment. The third is ethics or intellect. And the fourth is a random category. And you, Jeff Sieh, will have to choose one of each option in each question and then tell us why you made that choice. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
All right. Let's see what we got. Okay, here we go. Question number 1, Jeff Sieh. Would you rather never be able to sit down again or never be able to lie down again?
I like my nap, so it'd be. I would give up sitting down. I like to lie down.
So you either are perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal.
Yeah. There's some things you can't do in the seated position that I would like to do lying down. So. Gotcha.
And I suppose if you wanted to fudge the line a little bit, you could get a reclining chair, right? So you just kind of
right, exactly.
lay back in it. All right. Question number 2. Would you rather have an extra hand where one of your feet is or an extra eye where one of your hands is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. An extra eye where one of my hands is probably because I'm short and I could look higher would probably be the thing. So like if I'm trying to look over a fence or something, I would just boop. There we go. That would I'd go with that.
That is like something right out of a horror movie when someone's like, whoa, and there's an eye right there.
And I hope it wouldn't be the hand that I shake with. I hope it could be the left hand. Yeah. That'd be awkward. I'm just saying.
Or giving somebody a high five. Hey.
Oh, yeah, you got my eye. That's right. Right.
Yeah, that would be less than desirable. All right, question number 3. Would you rather always show up 20 minutes late for everything or always show up 90 minutes early for everything?
Well, my wife always likes to be late, and I'm always wanting to be there. I would do 90 minutes early. I do not like coming late. It just bothers me. And so I'm the one in the car going, when it's time to go somewhere. So kids are like running around, and so I would go 90 minutes early.
You would go 90 minutes early.
Yeah.
All right.
You never know what's going to happen.
Question number 4. The final question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Would you rather have regular encounters with aliens and not have any proof, or have your best friend be invisible?
Now, is there probing involved with the aliens? Did you say regular encounters?
Regular encounters, yes. I think for the purpose of this, we'll leave probing out of the equation.
That would go. I would think having my best friend invisible would be fun. I think that would be. We get some trouble that way. I would go with the Invisible Man.
You could. What was the movie of the guy whose best friend was an invisible rabbit?
Harvey?
Let's say it again.
Was it Harvey with?
Yes, it was Harvey.
Yeah.
See, that would be interesting, is to hear the conversations that people were having about you and your invisible friend, right?
Right, exactly.
Or the times where your friend does something to somebody, and you're like, I didn't do it.
That wasn't.
And you're the only one here.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens to me anyway, so it's not a big deal. I get blamed for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so there you go. So it's just business as usual.
Right. Who did that? What was that? That's that smell. Who did Jeff?
Invisible friend.
Yeah,
All right, folks. This has been This or That. and I think we all know Jeff Sieh just a little bit better.
I hope so.
All right. I am going to hop on over here to the comments, man. The comment stream over here has been blowing up. We have a lot of comments actually about your beard, so I'm gonna try to bring some of that in. We've got a lot of folks here that I do want to give a shout out as well to. Andrea, I always want to call her Andrea, but that's not how you say it, so I just call her Annie. Andrea Beltrame, Missy J, good to see you. Lee Rickler, Nikki Pasquire, I probably am brutalizing her last name, even though I've chatted with Nikki all the time. Ami Cito, it's great to see you guys. Craig H. We have Nikki was commenting on your beard earlier. She says that now that you have it, you have to keep that beard because it's part of your brand image. So I hate to tell you this, but that beard is with you for life.
That's right. Well, I may trim up
unless you rebrand.
Right. Well, I may trim up the mustache a little bit. I mean, so after a year, I may trim it up a little bit. But yeah, you know, the funny thing is, all this talks about the lump, and I think Nikki made a comment about this too in the comments about how trendy beards are, and you know, they came out with the lumbersexual and all that stuff. But the funny thing is, you just don't go out and get a beard. I mean, it takes time. It's not like you know, you're a trendy guy. Hey, I'm gonna go get this haircut. I mean, a beard, you know, this is a year. So it's kind of funny that they come up with this term, like all of a sudden people are trying to do it, because it takes a little bit of time. So
that was a year beard. Yeah, I think this is the comment you were referring to.
Yeah.
Which is, there's guys on Instagram who regularly post really cool haircuts and beard cuts, and like Missy J commented a minute ago as well, that it's super trendy at the moment in the UK. So there you go. You are multicultural.
That's what my goal is right there.
Yeah. Let's see. And there's the one that Missy J said they was referring to earlier, commenting on your beard. So the more and more men are growing their beard, and it's really in fashion. That I think guys are getting more communication due to their beard, and yours really coordinates with your man cave sign.
Thank you.
But Andrea didn't like me calling her. All right, and then there was Eileen, and this actually is a good question. Now, I haven't seen. I guess Rand Fishkin changed some of the stuff with his mustache. I haven't seen his new mustache. I don't know. Have you seen the new look that he has going on right now?
I saw. He may have changed it a little bit. I think he still has a mustache. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he still has that, unless something drastic changed. But because he was big on, I got some of my beard products because he recommended them on one of his shows. So anyway, so the funny thing about a beard is, you know, I wasn't expecting it to come in this gray, and so I'm getting the Gandalf look, which kind of scares me. Somebody told me I needed to dye it, but I was like, I'm not going to do that.
No way, man. Gandalf rocks. Are you kidding? You could be like, you could rebrand as the social wizard. Then you need the hat and like the staff.
Yeah, so I did register because another Sunny Calwander, I can't ever pronounce. I butchered her name too. She does sports kind of hangouts, and she told me that, you know, I should be the Pinterest wizard, and I actually went and I thought that's cool, so I went and registered that domain name. So just in case. The Pinterest professor.
Wizard, I love it. Well, that brings us in. In fact, Frederick had a great question that ties directly into your area of expertise when he wanted to know about Pinterest. He said, how do you start building a Pinterest following? So what advice do you have for those that want to actually start at a basic level or trying to begin breaking into the Pinterest area?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Number one, be consistent. One of the reasons I think I'm successful in Pinterest is I pin every day in the morning and every day in the evening, and I try to do that without fail. I mean, I'm not having any set times, but I try to touch Pinterest at least twice a day. 80% of Pinterest pins are repins, and so you want to repin good stuff. Make sure their links are that the links are actually good. When you click on the pin, that it goes to an actual website and it's not spam. That way, your audience begins to trust you, and people will follow you because they know you're a trustworthy person. And also, when you share your boards, make sure that you at least have like 10 pins so the boards look full and it looks like your account is active, and people would pin it that way. And so Consistency, though, is probably the main reason I think I found success on Pinterest. So.
Mm. So a couple of just nuance on a couple of those things you shared when you talked about your boards and making sure that you have 10 pins on them. What you did, and I've heard you talk about this before, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but you like to set up a Pinterest board in private, for a private board first, until you have it filled up to at least 10 pins, and then you bring it public.
Yeah, and so that way it doesn't flood the account with stuff, and so then I have places to pin to, and so it just looks fuller. And those are called secret boards, and they're really easy to do. You can make any secret board live. You can't go the other way. You can't make a board back to secret. It just doesn't work that way. Now you can move pins on Pinterest, I think like 50 at a time, so it's easier to move stuff around. But yeah, so do that, and also have your most popular boards be your number 1, number 2, and number 3, because that's what's going to show up on mobile devices. So if, like, I'm a social media guy, so my top boards are social media tips, Pinterest tips, and my Manly Pinterest Tips podcast. They're not my food boards, they're not my geek board, they're not that, because that's what's going to show up first in mobile when somebody looks at my profile. So if you're a flower shop, make sure your flower arrangements are the first things on there, not your Thanksgiving dinner recipe board. Just because of that reason of they show up that way on mobile first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and your comment about the repinning with links, unless I'm mistaken, recently Pinterest has gone through and actually, because Pinterest for a while, a lot of people were using it as an affiliate to promote their affiliate sales, and so Pinterest has actually now removed links from those things that are affiliates, so you do have broken links in places now where
right.
people had pins that were pointing to their affiliate accounts. Is that correct?
Right, and Pinterest had like removed Amazon and stuff like that for a while now. They had like 3 or 4 places that they were still allowing the affiliate networks, and those were removed. The main reason that I tell people to make sure they check their links is because of spam, because you can still, you can go and change any pin, and we had a guy do this in one of my a couple of my friends were affected as well. He went and took all our links, took all our pins, posted it to his board, and then changed all the links in the background to go to his site. And that's spam. And so that's not really an affiliate link or anything. That's just the link isn't going to the right spot. So if I click on an infographic, I want to go to the infographic where that was originated at. And I always double check to make sure, because I want the right person getting the credit for it, and also it makes me look better that it's not going to somebody selling something off of their website.
Yeah, that's really, I didn't even think about that, and I imagine, you run into spammers and stuff on any network, and they figure out the little ways that they can tweak the system to screw over other people in order to benefit themselves. I didn't even think about the fact that you can change the links and that impacts things, because a lot of times when I get on there, I'll see infographics, and I won't necessarily be trying to reshare like the article that it links to. I want that infographic that's right there on Pinterest. So I will reshare the infographic without necessarily checking that article. And I didn't even think about the fact that I could be sharing links to some garbage that then degrades my reputation on Pinterest.
And that's the other thing, is I'm always checking, and there's even big time influencers that do it, and it drives me nuts. Is they're sharing infographics from 2002 or data to articles that are in 2005. That aren't relevant anymore. And so I don't try, unless it's really, really good and I think it's relevant. I try not to share stuff that's over a year old. And so what I'll look is, and if they don't have the date on that blog post, I'll scroll down to the comments and see when the last comment was. And that way I can tell kind of where that article kind of is from date-wise. But because that really irritates me, is I don't want to share mobile information from 2009 because it's not relevant anymore. And so I think, and that's why I think one of my tips for success on Pinterest is when people start trusting, man, this guy's got relevant, up-to-date information, then more people are going to follow you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you my favorite. I saw that somebody shared this pin the other day, and it cracked me up. And I think it was something like content marketing predictions for 2013.
Right.
I was like, awesome. Let's predict that.
Yeah, it's just somebody just randomly pinning, yeah. Oh, I just saw this, if you don't mind me reading it. Missy J
Sure.
said, has the links removed by Pinterest affected traffic to your site? And it's not. That's only for affiliate links, Missy. So mine is just linking back to my blog, my blog post. Those are not affected at all. Regular links are not affected. It's just those affiliate links where people were getting paid for traffic. And so that's not happening anymore.
Right. And in fact, Jeff, and I know that really you are present in multiple platforms, and you do incredibly well there. Plus, you have your own site, and you're doing your show, and you're on YouTube. So you're all over the place. But I know that sort of the area that you are best known for as your expertise and ties in with your branding is Pinterest. Mm-hmm. You have something coming up here fairly soon designed to help people that want to amplify Pinterest. Yeah?
Boy, that was the smoothest segue I've ever been on. Thank you so much, Thomas. That was awesome. Yeah, Cynthia Sanchez, and if you don't know who Cynthia Sanchez is, you need to find out. She's awesome. She's one of the main reasons I got into Pinterest. She has a great podcast called Oh So Pinteresting. But she and I are putting together a Pinterest boot camp, which is a 5-hour intensive training on Saturday, April 18th, and you can find out more about it at mypinterestbootcamp.com. That's mypinterestbootcamp.com. That's Saturday, April 18th. So anyway, thanks for the plug, man. That was awesome.
And we'll put that link. We'll mention that again at the end of the show, but we'll also put that link in the comments. And when I update the description, I'll put that link in there as well, so that you guys can go check that out. But that's mypinterestbootcamp.com.
Yep.
Gotcha. We'll check that out. We also have, and I'm going back a little bit here. Craig had a great point. I think he was referring back again to some of the conversation around your set and your beard and the way that you present yourself. But he said that that finding an image for your brand is a great way to stand out. Now, this often, though, at the same time, this is a real challenge for people that are trying to figure out how to communicate their brand. Is they know kind of what maybe their area of expertise is, and then maybe they have an idea of their voice and their personality and how they connect with things, but being able to connect a visual concept to that brand is often a real challenge. What type of insight can you give us for developing sort of a visual idea that communicates sort of what your brand is about?
Well, I think one, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I tried a bunch of different things. I mean, you can look back through my posts and see that I was experimenting. If you even Rebecca Radice, who I said to me is one of the best examples I see, and Peg Fitzpatrick, they're always experimenting with their brand. They have some core things that they've set on, but they're always experimenting with it. So it evolves over time. I don't think you're going to, for me, and I don't know many people who get it right the first time. They change stuff up. They may change, always tweak it. The other thing is I was very lucky that I had a group of people that I would ask, that I respected their opinion, and I asked for their help. When I came up with my logo, I sent it to a bunch of people, and I said, "What do you think?" I mean, these are people I trusted that were influencers. I sent it to Rebecca, to Peg, and to Elisa. And originally, it was a blue. It had a blue background, and you couldn't see the beard very well. And they said, "Hey, you need to change that." And so I listened, and I did that. And so and then I shared it to my audience and said, "What do you guys think?" And they were like, "This is great," you know. And so having those trusted advisors around you who aren't scared, you know, to say this is stupid, you know, you need to work on this some more, or yeah, this is great, why don't you tweak it this way? That's huge. And that was having that network that I have built up on Google Plus and relationships with that I've helped them with their video stuff, and so I feel comfortable now to ask them, what do you think about my stuff? That give and take is huge when you're trying to figure out your branding, because you know this, Thomas, that you can get locked in and so focused on the thing that you're doing that you can get blinders on and not see that in the long run that's not going to work. That logo may not look good on a t-shirt. That logo may not look good on a mug. Or you can't scale that for a podcast logo. You know, and so having people who bring up those questions are extremely helpful.
Yeah, or even diversity. I remember the design for Social Theory for this show. Actually, Andrea Beltrami, who is in the audience right now, she actually was the branding designer that I hired to do this show's design. And one of the things that we wound up discussing that she brought to my attention, because I didn't even think about it. She presented several different logos. And some the one we came up with, which you see here on my there, is fairly simple, which is important. But we had like 8 possible concepts, and this one we wound up going with because what she brought up is that there are a variety of different ways that this can actually be employed. So sometimes I'll share quotes, and we have the big green thing here that you can put the quote in and have the person's name down here in the white, and it still carries the image, the branding image. And there are other ways that we bring the magnifying glass in and connect into different stuff. But that sort of versatility while still retaining the brand stuff are things that I wouldn't even consider. And so having people that actually are aware of those things really help. My 2 people that I always go to asking about branding questions is Dustin Stout and Andrea Beltrami, because they know their stuff on that.
I'd also say one other thing. You also need to know is when to reject advice, because on my logo, if you look on mine, at the very bottom, it's the white tip, which is me. I mean, I've got a white tip on my beard. But somebody who I trusted came back and said, you need to take that out. Gradients don't work anymore. And I'm like, that's me. I've got to leave it in. I mean, I don't see how I can get it to work any other way. And so, yes, but make sure you don't get swayed by opinion. That was just one person. So I knew that, okay, I respect their opinion, but I know I can't make it work any other way. And so knowing that about yourself as well, I think is key too.
Gotcha. Yeah, the ability to discern and measure the decisions that we make.
Right.
So I want to bring in one last question that I had for you before we begin drawing near to the end of our show. One of the things that I am constantly looking to improve on is how you integrate images that help reaffirm your brand. And I know that we touched on that a little bit, some of that sort of creativity, but how do you go about thinking in terms of, well, let's get super practical. If I want to, let's say that I have an article, we can pick any sort of topic, and I want to find an image, a graphic that represents my brand and highlights that article. How do I find sort of that interplay? What are some processes that you use to think about that?
Well, for clients, I know for a lot of people doing, and Peg does this really well with her images. If she has her image on there, and then she's got a little round circle that's like a little plug that says Peg, and that's kind of her brand that she can stick on that image. You could do the same thing with your social theory thing. What I do with my blog post is I finally figured out that I can take these retro my retro logos and put them on different things, and I'm always trying to not make it blatantly obvious, but not make it really hard to figure out. I mean, if you looked at it and you didn't, my recent one that had the mine car on it, you'd be like, what is that? But if you would listen or read my thing, you know, oh, Wayne Harmon was a miner, and so that makes perfect sense for that blog photo. And so I'm always trying to, people say, oh, Jeff, you're such a good professional photographer. I'm not. I'm a professional stock photo guy. I mean, I have a couple sources, and they're pretty much everyone else has the same access to, and just changing them up, cropping them different, putting text on them creatively, and you know, Andrea is awesome at that too. I mean, all her stuff is, you know, it's from her. If you see her posts, you know that's her stuff, and so she's got a brand established with that. So I do. I mean, that's the thing that takes me the longest time when I put out a blog post, is finding that right image. Some people are better at that than me. Dustin's stuff looks good, and I have a feeling he doesn't struggle as much as I do when it comes to that stuff. But I mean, he has that look, and so you know, you could do the same thing. You know, he's got that. You always know it's a Dustin post by that little Dustin logo on that. So I think I answered your question. Is that what you were kind of?
Yeah. So I mean, what I really got out of this is that you kind of find something that helps reflect the article, but then you bring into that sort of the branding consistency that you develop that reflects the brand, that you kind of remain as a consistent feel throughout the images, so that you can link those in. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, and it took me a while to do that. I mean, all my stuff now, when I'm posting it, it has hopefully that retro feel to it, because that's my brand, that's my look,
Right.
and so getting that translated to my images, something I could repeat every week, that was tough. And I know, and that's one thing you're going to struggle with. I mean, once you get your logo down, that's awesome, but then you've got to think about, okay, I just can't slap any stock photo up there. If I do, I need to make it my own, and so I think that's important to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, and part of the challenge there, you mentioned earlier that finding your brand feel is sort of an evolution, and part of the challenge there is finding the balance between allowing it to evolve and still having consistency.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough balance. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we are down to the last couple minutes of our show. Where can we find you at, Jeff Sieh?
Well, I would love it for you guys to go to manlypinteresttips.com, and you can sign up there, and you know when the new shows are coming out. But of course, Google Plus, which I love to hang out with, and also any of you guys who are going to be at. I'm so excited that I get to go to Social Media Marketing World at the end of this month, and if anybody's going to be there, I would love to sit down, have a cup of coffee with you, and just talk about whatever. I just would love to meet anybody who's going to be at that conference. I think it's going to be great, and so if you're going to be there, let me know.
And we'll know who you are because you have the beard and the shirt.
Yeah, that's right. I'll be the short little bearded Gandalf running around. Yeah.
You're the walking Manly Pinterest brand. So we can track that down. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show and taking this time to connect with us. I am Thomas E. Hanna. You can find me right here on Google+. You can, if you're watching this and connecting over Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at BlogPhoto.tv, or you can just connect over at the website at BlogPhoto.tv. But I would love to connect with you. If we haven't already touched base before, send me a message. I'd love to get to know you. And until then, I will see you next week right here on Social Theory.